No warnings, no previews, no leaks to the press. Just one of those nights when everything flips and the last person you expected to throw a punch ends up knocking the loudest man in America flat on his back with a smile. The event was supposed to be simple. A charity gala for children's literacy, broadcast live across all major networks. Glitz, glam, and rich people clapping for causes they barely understand. The usual, but someone forgot to tell Michelle Obama that the script had a stay polite clause. Or maybe she knew and didn't care. She stepped onto that stage like she owned it. Not in a flashy way, not with ego, but with that steady confidence people pretend not to fear, but definitely do. The dress was midnight blue. The heels were quiet. The entrance was smooth. But the room felt a little colder the second she took the mic. Everyone could feel it. Even the cameras slowed down. Real talk. Who do you think represents America better on the world stage? Michelle Obama, with her calm strength and clarity, or Donald Trump with his Twitter fingers and tantrums? Be honest. No filters. Drop your answer in the comments. I'm watching. A few minutes before she walked on, backstage whispers said Trump's team was already watching the live stream. He wasn't scheduled to appear, of course. The man wouldn't be caught dead supporting anything involving children, books, or Michelle Obama. But he was watching. His inner circle had made sure of that. After all, he'd made a habit of taunting her in tweets, in speeches, and at those bloodshot MAGA rallies where facts go to die. And now here she was, about to speak on live television. Michelle greeted the audience with her usual grace, but there was something sharper in her tone. Not unkind, just focused. The kind of focus that lets you know someone didn't come here just to read off a teleprompter. She began with a few soft notes on education. The need for unity. The children who don't have books in their homes. Classic Obama. Everyone nodded. Safe. Sweet. Moving on. But then her eyes locked onto the camera lens. She stopped, just for a second. Then she smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a warm, holiday special smile. This one had steel in it. And just like that, it changed. The speech wasn't for the gala anymore. It wasn't even for the audience in the room. It was for one man, orange, bloated, insecure, and likely already trying to throw a ketchup bottle across his Mar-a-Lago suite. Some people, she said, spend their entire lives trying to erase facts and rewrite failures into fiction. And then they call it leadership. The silence was instant. Backstage, the producers froze. CNN staff leaned forward. Fox News fumbled with their emergency deflect buttons. And Trump? He stopped chewing. Michelle didn't flinch. She wasn't naming names. She didn't need to. The country had lived through 4 years of what she was talking about. Everyone knew exactly which golf-stained, hairsprayed former leader she meant. Twitter wasn't ready. Instagram wasn't ready. Even TikTok had to pause its dance routines and make room for the firestorm this woman was lighting with nothing but a microphone and a pointed sentence. What came next wasn't on any teleprompter, and it definitely wasn't approved by the event planners. But it was going to be the only thing people talked about for the next 72 hours straight. And for the first time in recent memory, Donald Trump had nothing to say. No tweet, no insult, no rally chant, just quiet. Because when Michelle Obama decided to call him out on live TV with the world watching, he wasn't just embarrassed. He was undone. And that was just the beginning. The gala was dressed like any other high society event. Soft jazz, overpriced lighting, rich people sipping wine they couldn't pronounce, and a silent auction nobody actually cared about. On the surface, it was just another Thursday night where billionaires came to show they still had a heart, right before returning to their yachts to fire more staff. But under that polished surface, something was off. The mood wasn't tense. It was too calm, like a forest right before a lightning strike. And in the corner of that glossy ballroom, a group of producers huddled near a monitor with headphones on, whispering like they were guarding nuclear codes. The theme was Voices for Tomorrow, a children's literacy campaign spun as neutral, feel-good content for the press. Nobody expected confrontation, except Michelle's camp. They hadn't made a big show of their presence. Her name wasn't even on the flyer. But behind the scenes, her appearance was sealed with 2 phone calls. One to the event director, the other to a network insider who owed her a favor. She wasn't there for exposure. She wasn't there to smile for the billionaires. She was there because of one man watching from afar with a half-eaten Big Mac in one hand and rage building in the other. Donald Trump wasn't even on a guest list. Why would he be? The man's version of literacy was retweeting memes his followers couldn't spell check. But his name lingered in that ballroom like a bad smell. Ever since he'd made a public jab at Michelle's memoir, calling it ghost-written garbage for sad suburban women. The tension between the two had been growing, slow and poisonous. Michelle didn't respond. Not publicly, but everyone close to her knew that silence didn't mean surrender. It meant planning, and that night was the result. Backstage, her staff moved like chess players. Quiet, sharp, focused. Her assistant adjusted the lapel mic. A speechwriter handed her a single folded page. Not a script, but a backup in case she wanted to wing it. She didn't even glance at it. 3 tables away from the stage sat a small group of Republican donors. Red ties, glassy eyes, stiff posture. They were out of place, but pretending not to be. One of them, a leathery-faced oil tycoon with a fake concerned smile, was texting someone at Fox News. Michelle showing up. She's got something. They were right. She did. But no one, not the rich guests, not the smug GOP donors, not even the jittery CNN anchors hoping for a ratings bump, knew exactly how heavy that something was. Meanwhile, over at Mar-a-Lago, Trump was pacing. Not strutting. Pacing. He had his phone in one hand and his comms guy on speaker. The comms guy, some twitchy intern from Truth Social, kept stammering, "Sir, we're monitoring. If she says your name, we'll have pre-written tweets ready. Just say the word." But Trump didn't say anything. He was already sweating. Somewhere in his gut, buried beneath the ego, the hairspray, and whatever expired meat he had for dinner. He knew this night wasn't going to go his way. Not because Michelle had more power, but because she had something he'd never be able to buy: credibility. Back at the gala, the MC was wrapping up a boring intro about literacy numbers and donations. Then came the announcement, and now, a surprise message from someone who's helped shape a generation. The lights shifted. The music faded. Michelle walked out. No intro music. No teleprompter glow. Just the woman herself, standing in heels that didn't make a sound, in a dress that didn't need sparkle to pull every eye in the room. A ripple went through the crowd. You could see the discomfort in real time. Men uncrossed and recrossed their legs. Women who had spent years pretending not to care about politics suddenly forgot how to hold their wine glasses. The donors at table 7 stiffened like mannequins in a wind tunnel. Michelle reached the podium. She looked calm, but behind her eyes, the fire was already burning. And somewhere in Florida, a bloated ex-president was about to learn that silence could be louder than any rally chant. Because when Michelle Obama cleared her throat and leaned into that mic, she wasn't there to speak. She was there to deliver, and the room would never be the same again. Michelle stood still, hands resting lightly on the podium like she was holding the attention of the entire nation by its collar. And she was. There were no fidgets, no nervous laughs. Her face didn't twitch, not even slightly. The silence didn't bother her. In fact, it fed her. She scanned the room like a teacher looking over a classroom of misbehaving students. The kind who think they're slick until the principal walks in. And right now, Michelle was the principal, America's substitute mom. And someone was about to get grounded. She started slow on purpose. A few warm words about the children the fundraiser was meant to support. Words that sounded sincere because they were. She didn't need fake tears or overacted concern. When Michelle spoke about kids not having books, it landed. Because everyone in that ballroom knew she'd shown up to classrooms with no cameras, no press, just kids, books, and her voice. But then, without changing her tone, she made a left turn so sharp, half the room mentally crashed into a wall. When we talk about literacy, she said, we're not just talking about reading words. We're talking about recognizing lies when they're shouted at you from podium. We're talking about decoding the difference between facts and Facebook posts from your angry uncle. A single cough echoed across the ballroom. Someone dropped a fork. The producers backstage were frozen, headsets half off, eyes wide. No one had cleared this. No one had rehearsed this. But they couldn't stop it either. This wasn't a speech anymore. It was a warning. Michelle didn't need notes. She wasn't winging it. She knew exactly where this was going. She turned ever so slightly toward the camera, the big one, center stage, feeding live to all networks. Her expression didn't change. Still calm, still composed, but her words began to shift weight. Some people spent 4 years making noise, tweeting tantrums, spreading fear like it was gospel, she said. And they called that leadership. They stood behind podiums and told millions of Americans that the truth was whatever they wanted it to be. And when facts disagreed, they fired the fact-checkers. Now the audience was split. Some people stared straight ahead, pretending they weren't sweating. Others leaned forward, hooked. Celebrities in the front rows whispered to each other, eyes darting between Michelle and the glowing exit signs, as if they weren't sure whether to clap or evacuate. But Michelle wasn't looking for applause. She never paused for it. She wasn't selling anything. She was saying something, and she didn't need the room's approval. She had the truth, and a microphone, and an audience that stretched across the country. Then she said it. They built towers and plastered their names on them. But when this country needed steady hands and clear minds, all they offered were hashtags and hats. The air left the room. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. She still hadn't said his name. She didn't have to. Trump's name was a ghost in that room. Everyone could feel it breathing down their necks. His team, miles away, was scrambling. Someone tried calling Hannity. Another in turn yelled, "Is she allowed to say this?" But nobody could stop it. The cameras were rolling. The feed was live. The mic was on. Michelle took a breath, then aimed the final bullet. Leadership isn't screaming into a phone at 3 a.m. It isn't mocking the sick, bullying the grieving, or trying to overturn elections like a bad reality show plot twist. Leadership is doing the hard thing when no one's clapping. And some people just weren't built for that. They were built for noise, not purpose. The crowd didn't know what to do. A few clapped. Others just stared, blinking, faces frozen like bad wax figures. The GOP table looked like a funeral in slow motion. One guy whispered to another, "She just ended him." And she wasn't done. The screens behind her, quiet all evening, suddenly lit up. Nobody knew this was coming. Not even the crew. It wasn't a planned slideshow. It was a rapid-fire reel. No warning. Just rolling footage. Michelle comforting hurricane victims. Trump throwing paper towels like he was playing carnival games. Michelle reading to kids. Trump yelling at reporters. Michelle holding a child with cancer. Trump pushing conspiracy theories about bleach. Each clip only lasted seconds, but they hit hard. A punch, then another, then another. And just when it felt like the room couldn't hold any more pressure, the screen faded to black. The silence was loud. Michelle looked back at the crowd, then at the camera, and she smiled, not out of pettiness, not even satisfaction. It was the kind of smile you give after returning something to its rightful owner. A quiet nod that says, "We both knew what this was." She ended with one line. "I was never angry, just disappointed." Then she walked off the stage. No music, no applause cue, just her heels clicking against marble, walking away from the microphone she didn't need anymore. And somewhere in Florida, Donald Trump was standing very still, holding his phone like it had betrayed him. Because for once, there were no tweets left. Michelle had already said it all. Live, with the whole world watching. If you're still watching and haven't subscribed yet, ask yourself, do you really support truth, or are you just addicted to the circus? Because staying silent now means you're okay with the shouting drowning out the truth. Hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share this before someone tries to rewrite what just happened. We have a target to hit 50 subscribers before the end of April, and you can make this happen for us. Please subscribe. Nobody knew who cued the footage. It wasn't part of the run sheet, not in the rehearsal, not on the producer's clipboard. It just started, quietly, no fanfare. The lights dimmed again, almost too smoothly, like the building itself agreed that Michelle's mic drop wasn't the ending, just the opening shot. Then, the screen behind her lit up once more. It started with grainy cell phone footage. A young boy in a rundown library, flipping through a torn book. His voice came in soft. "My school got books because she came." A shaky camera panned to a plaque on the wall, donated by the Obama Foundation. The screen faded to black. It hit hard. The next clip smashed through the quiet with a full-volume rant. Trump, red-faced, sweaty, waving his arms like a malfunctioning wind-up toy, shouting about very fine people on both sides. You could hear gasps from the audience. One woman covered her mouth. An older man in the second row looked like someone had slapped him with his own checkbook. What followed wasn't subtle. It was deliberate. Clip after clip rolled across the screen, side-by-side comparisons that didn't need commentary. The contrast spoke louder than any narrator could. Michelle hugging grieving mothers after a school shooting. Trump golfing during a hurricane. Michelle planting trees with kids in Flint, Michigan. Trump throwing paper towels at Puerto Rican storm victims like he was tossing snacks at a zoo. The room tightened. People weren't whispering anymore. They were stunned silent. Phones came out, not for tweets, but to record what felt like a public reckoning. Everyone knew this wasn't an accident. Someone had planned this moment with surgical precision. The footage cut to Trump mocking a disabled reporter, then to Michelle visiting a children's hospital during the peak of a flu outbreak. No cameras, no press. Just a quiet, recorded moment from a nurse's phone. Michelle holding a baby, whispering something soothing, even though she'd been in meetings all day. The screen jumped again. This time, Trump in the Rose Garden, barking nonsense about injecting disinfectant. Then Michelle again, this time in a town hall, telling a teenage girl, "Your voice matters," even when adults fail to hear it. You could hear someone in the back of the room murmur, "Jesus," not a prayer, just disbelief. And then it came, the gut punch. The final clip was grainy security footage. Capitol Hill, January 6th. Trump on a loudspeaker, yelling at his followers to march. The mob moving, breaking, screaming. One voice in the crowd yelling, "He told us to do it." Then it cut, hard, to Michelle, standing at a school a week later. Calm, tired. She said just one thing in that clip, her voice hoarse from talking for hours. Democracy is a choice. You can't scream your way into power. The screen went black. The silence this time wasn't shocked. It was heavy, like the air had gained weight. People weren't blinking. Even the staff backstage stood still, like they were afraid to breathe too loud. A cameraman wiped his eyes without looking away from the lens. And somewhere in Florida, Trump had stopped pacing. He stood frozen in front of a massive flat screen, lips parted, face pale under a fresh spray tan. His phone, gripped in his hand, was still open to Twitter or whatever sad corner the internet hadn't banned him yet. His assistant whispered, "Should we respond?" Trump didn't answer, because he knew it wasn't a speech that wrecked him. It wasn't a clever line or a viral meme. It was that footage, raw, real, and impossible to spin. It showed who he really was. And worse, who he never could be. Michelle didn't need to smear him. She didn't even have to call him out by name. The screen had done the work. The country had just watched a man's so-called legacy collapse in front of their eyes. Not with fire, but with facts. And it hurt him more than any election loss ever did. Because this time, nobody cheated. They just remembered. Mar-a-Lago had gone quiet. Not a peaceful quiet. Not the kind that comes after a good meal or a golf swing that doesn't slice. This was the thick, choking kind of silence that follows a public humiliation. And this wasn't just any humiliation. This one came gift-wrapped in high definition, delivered straight from Michelle Obama's lips to every flat screen in the building. Trump stood in front of the massive TV in his gilded lounge, shoulders slouched, mouth slightly open. The staff around him, those who hadn't already quietly slipped out of the room, were frozen in place. They looked like they were waiting for an explosion, but nothing came. That somehow was worse. He didn't scream. He didn't throw a phone. He didn't start yelling about fake news or Hillary or windmills or whatever random enemy usually filled the slot. He just stood there and watched. The screen had gone dark after the footage ended, but he didn't move. It was like he expected it to rewind, to fix itself, to somehow show a version of him that looked less like a bloated mess in a red hat and more like a leader. But that version didn't exist. And for the first time, he knew it. "Sir," one of his aides said, voice barely above a whisper, "we can prep a response. Something punchy. Maybe say she's lying." Trump blinked, slowly, like he didn't even hear him, like his brain was buffering. Like the usual cable news tricks had finally hit their limit. In the corner, one of the interns tried to mute the TV, then turn it off altogether. The click of the remote echoed through the room like a gunshot. Still, no reaction. He walked away from the screen, sluggishly, like someone moving through water, down the short hallway past the portraits of himself, every step heavier than the last. The gold-framed mirror on the wall caught his reflection, and he stopped, stared at it, just stared. This wasn't the man he thought America saw. That man was loud, invincible, untouchable. The man in the mirror looked smaller. The color in his face was off, not the usual orange glow, but a sort of pale pinkish gray, like a grapefruit gone bad. He turned to his staff and finally said something. "She rehearsed that," he muttered. "It wasn't off the cuff. That was planned." No one responded, not even to agree, because they all knew it didn't matter. Whether Michelle had memorized it or made it up on the spot, the effect was the same. She'd pierced through him like a knife through a balloon, and all the hot air was hissing out. Then came the real crack. "She's a nobody," he snapped, suddenly jolting with the energy of a tantrum 5 years too late. "She got where she is because of me. Because of me. You think anyone cared about her before I ran for office?" His voice rose, but it was shaky, like an old engine trying to roar and failing. His face, finally flushed, twitched with rage that had nowhere to go. There was no debate stage to yell on, no rally crowd to chant with, no social media platform to vomit into. Just him, a room full of fake loyalty and a legacy being peeled away like rotten wallpaper. "We need to hit back," he barked. "Get Tucker on the phone. Or Elon. Somebody. Anyone who isn't scared of her." But everyone was scared of her now, because Michelle hadn't just embarrassed him. She'd reminded people what leadership used to look like. And Trump, for all his noise and spectacle, had nothing to offer in response but a sulk and a stale cheeseburger waiting in the next room. Melania walked in, looked at the TV, looked at Trump, said nothing, just shook her head, and walked back out. She didn't even fake sympathy, didn't pat his arm, didn't sigh. She'd seen this version of him too many times, the one who loses but pretends the game is rigged. And for once, even he couldn't pretend. Not tonight. In the background, a staffer refreshed Twitter on a burner phone and whispered, "Hashtag Trump speechless is trending." Another added, and hashtag Michelle 2028. It's gaining. Trump's hand twitched. He stared out the window now. His reflection still clung to the glass, blurred and warped by the Florida humidity outside. He looked tired, not just physically, tired in his soul, if that part of him still functioned. And then, almost too quietly to hear, he spoke again. She made me look like a clown." Nobody responded, because he had, and the silence that followed said more than any press conference ever could. She could have ended it there. Michelle could have walked off that stage after the footage, after the silence, and the night would have already been branded in history. People would have talked. Headlines would have exploded. Trump would have raged and sulked and blamed everyone from Hillary to the janitor. But she didn't walk away. Not yet. She stood at the edge of the stage, half-turned, like she was done. One heel pivoted. Her hand dropped from the mic. People started clapping. Not thunderous applause. More like scattered relief that the firestorm had finally cooled. Then she turned back. The air tightened. Her face was steady, but her eyes were locked in like a sniper. "There's one more thing," she said. The applause died instantly. Phones went back up. Reporters leaned forward like squirrels spotting a dropped sandwich. People at home, some already halfway to the fridge, stopped and turned around. Nobody breathed. Michelle leaned in toward the mic. Not close enough to yell, just close enough to cut. "I was raised to believe that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. We've spent years watching a man show us exactly who he is. Loud, proud, cruel, petty, always reaching for power with one hand and pointing blame with the other." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It landed, like a slow, heavy truth finally being spoken after everyone had danced around it. We've seen him mock veterans, attack mothers, lie about elections, and treat truth like a punching bag. And still, we asked, is this who we are? Well, maybe the real question is, who do we want to be? You could hear someone in the second row whisper, "Oh my God," not because of what she said, but because of what was coming. Then she hit them. One day, our kids will ask what we stood for, what we tolerated, what we called leadership. And if we're not careful, all we'll have to show them are red hats, broken promises, and a man who spent more time watching cable news than reading a briefing. She paused, but only long enough to let that sting. History isn't written in gold on a casino wall. It's written in the way we treat each other. It's written in hospitals, schools, shelters, and yes, ballot boxes. Another pause. A few people clapped this time louder. Not forced, but raw. Like they needed to. Michelle nodded just slightly. Then she delivered the kill shot. The line that would echo across every talk show, every reaction podcast, every late-night monologue for the next year. And let's be real. Some people spend their lives building walls, while others spend theirs building bridges. I didn't come here to build walls. Gasps. That was it. That was the one. Not even subtle. Not a shade. Not a jab. That was a straight uppercut to the orange jaw of American politics. She didn't smirk. She didn't wait for applause. She just held the mic for one more second, then set it down carefully on the podium. No mic drop. No stunt. She didn't need theatrics. The moment was the mic drop. Michelle turned and walked off stage, back straight, stride calm, eyes forward like someone who had finished a job and left no crumbs behind. Backstage, people scrambled. Phones rang. Emails flew. A junior producer muttered, "We're going to need a bigger control room." Outside, journalists were already throwing their scripts in the air. Cable anchors rushed to their makeup chairs like they were on fire. Someone at Fox News was yelling, "Fix the cheering. Say she threatened the flag," or something. But it was too late. The clip was already spreading. 10 seconds after she left the stage, it was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even Grandma's favorite church WhatsApp group. There was no stopping it. Her face, that line, that walk. Somewhere in the west wing of Mar-a-Lago, Trump sat hunched in silence. He'd watched it, all of it, and now he just sat there, cheeks sagging, lips twitching, his hand trembling over the phone screen. The post button stared back at him, but for once he didn't press it. He had no comeback, no insult, no lie ready to fix what just happened. Michelle hadn't just ended a speech. She had ended something else, something he wasn't ready to admit was gone. His grip, his hold, his image. And all she had to do was tell the truth. Out loud, with the whole country watching. By sunrise, America was no longer the same. Michelle Obama hadn't just dropped a speech. She'd launched a national event. The kind that split dinner tables, broke algorithms, and turned group chats into battlegrounds. By morning, even the birds were tweeting about it. Hashtags flooded every corner of the internet like a tsunami with no reverse button. Hashtag bridge not walls. Hashtag Trump speechless. Hashtag Michelle 2028. Hashtag that was not a podium, that was a pulpit. Within hours, late-night talk shows canceled their pre-written monologues and rewrote everything on the fly. Jimmy Kimmel walked on stage and just held up a phone showing Michelle's closing line. The audience screamed for 2 minutes straight. No jokes needed. Trevor Noah said, "I don't know what that was." A speech? A roast? An exorcism? Either way, she cooked him. Stephen Colbert added, "Michelle just gave America a flu shot and Trump was the virus." On The View, Joy Behar was practically levitating. Sunny was smiling so hard it looked like her face might crack. Even Whoopi, who rarely breaks out the big guns, said, "That wasn't a speech. That was a funeral." Meanwhile, conservative media didn't know what to do. Fox News tried spinning it by putting up a headline. Michelle Obama uses children's gala to launch personal vendetta. But the comments section rebelled. Viewers wrote things like, "I don't even like her, but damn," and "She cooked your boy, just say it." Tucker Carlson, somewhere in a dark studio lit like a haunted house, stared into the camera and mumbled something about globalist feminism and Obama's ghost presidency. His eyes were twitching like a man who just watched his childhood hero get pantsed in public. Then came the memes. Michelle in a chef's hat, captioned, "She brought the heat and left no meat uncooked." Michelle holding a mic like it was a flamethrower. Michelle stepping over Trump's spray-tan body like she was walking over a puddle. One tweet went viral in 15 seconds. Michelle Obama didn't raise her voice. She raised the bar. Even celebrities who usually stayed silent jumped in. Beyoncé posted a single word under a photo of Michelle at the podium. Queen. Zendaya tweeted, "Can we make her president and just delete the last guy from history?" Rihanna, on Instagram Live, literally poured a glass of wine and said, "I'm naming this vintage Trump's tears. Cheers, sis." Barack Obama, always the calm voice, said nothing for hours. Then, at exactly 10:47 a.m., he posted a photo of Michelle walking off stage with a caption that simply read, "Still the one." That was it. No hashtags. No exclamation marks. Just quiet power. But what really sent America spiraling was how regular people reacted. Not the rich. Not the pundits. Just everyday folks. Barbershops turned off ESPN and played the speech. Churches referenced it in Sunday sermons. Teachers printed out quotes and hung them on classroom walls. High school students used Michelle's lines in debates. One teenager in Atlanta walked into his principal's office and said, "I want to run for student body president." I saw what Michelle did. I'm ready. Across the country, people who had tuned out politics tuned back in, not to argue but to listen. Because it wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Calm. Firm. True. And across from all this, there was Trump, slumped in his oversized chair in Mar-a-Lago, scrolling through memes that used to be his territory. Every post felt like a slap. Every hashtag like a punch to the ego. And the worst part? No matter what he tweeted, no one cared. The internet had already crowned a new voice. He did try, of course. Around noon, he posted something rambling and bitter. Michelle Obama is a fraud who read from cue cards and had the media rig the event. Sad. But by then, people were already replying with clips of her speech, saying things like, "We heard her. We believe her. We don't care what you say anymore." Somewhere in D.C., a junior Republican staffer put his phone down and muttered, "We're not beating her." Not with him. Even CNN, which tries to act neutral but clearly had their popcorn ready, put up a breaking banner. Michelle Obama shakes America. Trump stunned into silence. And that was it. The moment turned into a movement. People started making shirts, printing bumper stickers. There were already rumors of a nationwide Bridge Day, where people would plant trees, donate books, and register to vote, all inspired by her words. No campaign, no slogans, just action. Michelle didn't need to announce anything. She didn't have to run. She didn't have to beg for attention. She had spoken once, and that was enough to remind people what real strength looked like. Not the kind that screams, not the kind that sues, but the kind that stands tall, tells the truth, and walks off without looking back. And just like that, the world turned. Not loud, not fast, but in Michelle's direction. That night didn't need a press release. It didn't need a campaign bus or a slogan slapped across a podium. Michelle Obama walked on stage, said what needed to be said, and walked off like she didn't just shake the foundation of American politics with a single microphone and zero apology. People felt it. The raw shift in energy. The difference between noise and truth. Between a man who hides behind slogans and a woman who speaks from scars, books, and a spine made of steel. And it wasn't just a speech. It was a warning, a call out, a line drawn in plain language for everyone to understand. You had your turn. You blew it. Now sit back and watch how it's done right. Trump tried to rally, tried to blame, tried to spin it into another grudge match. But nobody was interested. Not this time. His tantrums had aged like expired milk. The more he talked, the more people remembered why they stopped listening. Meanwhile, Michelle didn't even tweet about the moment. She didn't have to. Her silence spoke louder than anything Trump could scream through a gold-plated bullhorn. And now, here we are, left with that image, frozen in time. Michelle at the podium, calm and fearless. Trump on his couch, red-faced and rattled. One spoke with dignity. The other couldn't speak at all. That's the legacy of that mic drop. It wasn't noise. It was closure. And it hit harder than any chant at a rally ever could. So here's the question for you. The one watching, the one listening. Where were you when Michelle shut him down? And more importantly, Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country, your city, your village, your street name if you have to, because history just happened, and this comment section deserves to know who was here to witness it. And look, if you made it this far and you're not subscribed, be honest with yourself. Is it because you don't like truth? Is it because you're okay with watching clowns run the show? Or maybe, just maybe, you're afraid of strong, smart women who don't need to raise their voice to win? Either way, not subscribing after this, that says more about you than it does about the channel. So hit that subscribe button right now. Don't just lurk, stand for something. Like the video, drop a comment, share it with someone who still thinks shouting equals leadership. And if you got a mic drop moment of your own, leave it down below. Let's fill this space with voices that matter. And don't go anywhere, because if you think this was wild, wait till you see what happens when Trump tries to clap back and ends up clapping himself. That video's already loading. We'll see you there.